Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the EDC Coffee Chat. We are delighted to have Clea Rome on today. She runs our county's WSU Agricultural Extension Program. So she has some slides that she'll be sharing. And of course, as always, if you want to ask any questions, you can do that by either raising your hand or putting the question in the chat. Additionally, if you'll put yourself on mute so we don't inadvertently hear any background noises. And then with that, Clea, I'll let you take it away. And thanks again so much for joining us today and sharing the work that you do, your group does for Clallam County.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. I am really happy to be here because I always love a chance to brag about the great work that our team is doing at WSU Extension. As Colleen said, my name is Clea Rome, and I am both the director here at WSU Extension in Clallam County and also associate professor of community and economic development at Washington State University. So I will clue up my slides here. Give me a second. And as Colleen said, jump in anytime. All right. Can you all see that? Okay, so what is extension? Hopefully you all have heard about extension, but I find sometimes we're a well-kept secret. So I'll talk a little bit about extension as a whole, and then specifically our programming here in Clallam County. So cooperative extension is a program of universities around the country that was established in 1914 at our land-grant universities to extend information and knowledge from the universities out into rural areas. At the time, it was mostly agricultural research that was being conducted at these land-grant universities. And you can imagine for a farmer out here on the peninsula, how hard in 1914 it would have been to get some of that knowledge that was being conducted at the university, which is located in Pullman, around new agricultural techniques, around boosting yield, around soil health. So extension was established to bring that information out into these rural areas. I should add, I'm at home with a couple of 6 kids, so you'll probably see my cats passing in front of my screen now and then. They love to do that when I'm presenting. At the time when extension was first established, more than 50% of the US population lived in rural areas, and 30% of the workforce was engaged in farming as their primary profession. But today, fewer than 2% of Americans farm for a living, for their primary living today. And only 17% of Americans now live in rural areas. So extension has adapted to these changing national demographics. And our extension programming, while we do work with farms a lot, is not just agricultural. Our programming has expanded over the years to address community and economic development, as I mentioned, youth empowerment, nutrition, family health and wellness, and other subjects. So here's a map of our statewide extension resources. We have 39 county-based extension offices, 1 tribal extension office on the Colville Reservation, and 7 research centers scattered around the state. The closest research centers to us are in Mount Vernon and Puyallup. So our local programming has several different areas, which I'll talk about each of these areas. We have 4-H youth development, master gardeners, A big bulk of our work is in food systems, and we have waste prevention programs. Our food systems programs are regional programming. So we do programming in partnership with Jefferson and Kitsap. Our waste prevention program is a direct partnership with our solid waste department at the county. Our team has really grown over the years. When I started about 10 years ago, it was just me and two very part-time people, but now we have 14 staff members in our office, plus, like I said, regional staff and faculty that work in the other counties. So first 4-H. Many of you have probably been to the county fair and seen all the activities that kids do, showing their 4-H projects there. A lot of it is animal husbandry. But 4-H is really actually a year-round program, and the fair is kind of the culmination, the chance for kids to really show off what they've been up to over the years. But it's not just animals, actually. We have programming in many other areas, teen leadership. We do opioid and marijuana prevention programming. We do STEM programming, arts, and the 4-H curriculum is really, it's a vehicle to teach kids larger life skills in leadership, in civic engagement, in communication. We just recently brought on a livestock specialist for our 4-H program, and he's been here a year. His name is Dan McCarty, and already within that year, he's taken kids to state and national judging contests, and we have come back state and national champions. So our both our agriculture programming and our other programming is thriving in 4-H in the county. 4-H has a lot of benefits. There are studies that show that 4-H kids who enroll in 4-H are 56% more likely to be physically active and exhibit significantly lower drug, alcohol, and cigarette use. Next are Master Gardeners. Master Gardeners are a group of people. We have about 100 active Master Gardeners who take a really intensive 12-week course in horticulture and environmentally sound gardening practices. And then in return, they give back to the community through volunteering. We hold weekly plant clinics. We hold workshops. We partner with the roads department to conduct research on invasive species in the county. So Master Gardeners are really engaged in all sorts of activities across the county. But the bulk of our work, I would say, is in food systems. And I'm going to take a minute to explain what I mean by the term food systems. It means basically everything related to food. It means the production of food. It's how that food moves from farm to market, how it's processed and distributed, how people access it, and the food that's wasted. And there's a lot of food that's wasted. So we have programming that really touches on all aspects of the food systems. There are many tiers to the food system, from the very localized personal production of food that might be happening in our backyard gardens, at our community gardens, the hunting and gathering and fishing that takes place in our area, all the way up through the global food system. And we are all part of and susceptible to the whims of the global industrialized food systems. We saw firsthand during COVID what disruptions to global food supply can look like. And the food that we eat is tied to the global economy, to petroleum reserves, to decisions made by governments about trade, to the war in Ukraine, to economic development in China. As an example, two firms, Cargill and ADM, control 75% of all grain that moves between nations. And the three biggest chicken companies in United States, Cargill, Cisco, and Tyson, hold 90% of the market share of poultry that's produced and consumed in this country. And that means all the way up from holding rights to the genetics of these chickens, their production, their marketing and distribution, packaging, everything.
So, Clea,
Yes.
Can you give us a little insight into the food distribution into Clallam County? I mean, you're talking about Cargill, Cisco, do you have information about the resources into Clallam?
Only to say that only about 1% of the food that is eaten in Clallam County is produced here.
Okay.
The rest is coming from these larger food systems.
Like FSA or Cisco. I believe those are the two major. Okay.
Yeah, FSA, Cisco, there's also Charlie's Produce, there's also an organic distributor that hits several of our grocery stores as well. Yeah, so but very little of our food is produced here locally.
Right.
But we do have, and I'll talk a little bit about what farming looks like in Clallam County.
Okay.
But yeah, it's from a food security standpoint, it's a concern. I know we're all, we talk a lot about emergency management, about preparing for the big one. But even with increased climate change, and we think about the vulnerability of our bridges and our infrastructure in the increased storms and flooding, it's an issue to have food coming to this isolated area from outside in that way. And there's this statistic that says that at any given time, and this is true for really most communities around the country, that there's about 3 days worth of flex time in terms of the food that's available given a large disruption in the food supply.
Right. So it would have to be helicoptered in or something, or eventually, barged in or something like that.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
We do have farms in our county that are operating at all of these levels. Most of the farms, as I'll talk about in a minute, are down here in tier 1 and 2, where they're either selling directly to consumers, and there's a lot of advantages to farmers to do that. But we do have we have a fair amount of farms that operate, in regional distribution and tap into some of these larger distributors like Charlie's Produce that I mentioned. We even have farms that are operating at tier 4. We have a handful of farms in the county that contract with international seed companies, and the seed that gets grown here in Clallam County goes all over the world. In fact, at one time, we're an ideal place to grow vegetables in the brassica family, which is things like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli. And at one time, a significant chunk of the cauliflower seed that was being grown internationally was being grown here in Clallam and in the Skagit Valley.
So that would be Nash's produce, right? Is there another one outside of Nash?
No, Nash doesn't. Nash did a contract with a seed company that was based out of Skagit. But yeah, there are other farmers in the county, a handful of farmers that they contract with these seed companies to grow their seed for them. They grow it, but oftentimes the seed company will come and collect it and do the cleaning and processing of the seed elsewhere. We have other farms that grow their own seed and market their own seed, or contract with much smaller seed companies that are specialized markets for organic producers and home gardeners. Seed companies like High Mowing Seed Company or Territorial. We even have a local seed company called Saltwater Seeds.
Got it.
I'm just going to click through these here. Oops. Okay. So here's an overview of what farming looks like in Clallam County. The red on the map at the bottom is a general distribution of where farms are in our county. You can see the majority of farms take place, the majority of farming takes place in the Sequim Dungeness Valley, but really we have farms all over the county. There are 528 farms in our county, according to the agricultural census that gets conducted every 5 years by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The most recent data that we have for the agricultural census was in 2017. So this is a little bit, a couple of years old. But this is a breakdown of the farms. This is my category of breakdown of farms. There's nothing scientific about it. By any measurement, really, the farms in our county, even the ones that are, like, as I said, contracting with international seed companies, would be considered small farms. The largest farms in our county, we have 4 or so. Again, this is a couple years old that have over $500,000 in gross revenue every year. But the vast majority of our farms are on the other end of the spectrum. 285 making $2,500 or less in farm-related income. This might look like a farm stand that they have on their property. They might be raising a couple of cows for not only for themselves, but for that their neighbors buy from them, for instance. So the mid-range of farms from $10,000 to $50,000 a year are our main commercial farms, I would say.
So if that's the gross revenue listed there, what's a typical margin that someone makes? Like to live reasonably, let's say a family needs to have our household median income's around $52,000 per year. So to make $52,000 to spend to support yourself, how much do you need to be making in gross revenue as a farmer?
It totally
depends.
Totally depends on the size of farm, but if this profile of farms is not unique to Clallam County. The vast majority of farms in our country are really small family farms where either the farmer or the farmer and their partner have off-farm income. That's the vast majority of farms. It's really tough to make a living as a farmer, really, no matter what scale of farm that you're at. But we have farms in the county where farmers, it's their primary source of income. They support their families with farming, and they have employees, multiple employees. So we have those farms in our county as well.
Would that be just the 34 on the right-hand side, the 18, 12, and 4? Or are there some significant numbers of farmers that are making less than 50,000 in gross revenue and have employees?
Yeah, there are, absolutely, because the situation with farms is that much like any small business, right? Any kind of profits that are earned are rolled back into the farm, and the equity of the farmer is in their land. So it's like any small business, right? Oftentimes the farmer gets paid last or not at all.
Yeah, right.
But they don't have a food budget necessarily that they have to worry about as much. So the average size farm in Clallam County is 33 acres, but the median size is only 9 acres. Because like I said, we have a lot of really small farms. But this is a case where size really does not matter. Some of our highest grossing farms are on the smallest acreage because people are maximizing production through season extension, through niche products, through, as I said before, selling directly to consumers where they can get a much higher price for their product than they can if they're selling into a wholesale market. The census shows that the county does about $12 million in farm sales annually. So the number of farms in our county has declined significantly. Again, like everywhere in the country, there's only 2% of people farming as their full-time income across the county. Our farmland has declined about 78% since the 40s. And this trend continues right up to today. We had the census, the most recent census shows about 6,500 acres of farmland lost between 2012 and 2017, which is actually a bigger jump than the statewide average. Recently, the commissioners passed the Conservation Futures Program a couple of years ago only. Prior to that, we were one of only 2 counties in Western Washington that didn't have that program. Now that we have that program, the pace of farmland conservation is actually going to double in the county, with probably projected to have 2 large conservation projects of farmland happening per year. So even though we're losing farmland, people are moving to Clallam County to farm. We have new farmers arriving here regularly, moving here specifically to farm. And our area has a higher amount of new and beginning farms than the national average. Every week, our office at Extension gets a call from somebody saying, I'm interested in farming in Clallam County. What can you tell me about it? These are both established farms that are relocating from elsewhere. And I imagine we'll continue to see more of that as climate challenges occur in places like California and Arizona. And also people moving here who are looking to establish a new farm. And this is because our area is an awesome place to farm. We have incredible soils here in Clallam County, lots of nationally significant prime farmland. Prime farmland is a designation that the U.S. Department of Agriculture uses to identify soil types that are really ideally suited for farm production. And you can see this is a map of our prime farmland, and the red is nationally significant prime farmland. The orange is statewide importance, and prime, there's others prime if irrigated, and we do have irrigation, which I'll talk about in a second. We have a really amazing range of microclimates where a lot of different varieties of vegetables can be grown. As you all probably know, the rule of thumb in Clallam County is for every mile you move west towards the coast, you gain an inch of rainfall. So while Sequim has 17 inches of rain and a native cactus, out in Forks, we get over close to 120 inches of rain. So that means lots of different farming activities in the county. We have an extensive irrigation network established in the 1800s. This is a map of the irrigation network in the Sequim Dungeness Valley. Thanks to the efforts of the Conservation District and the Department of Ecology, the vast amount of these, what were open canals, have now been piped to maximize the efficiency of this irrigation system, to protect the salmon that are in the Dungeness River, and to also protect water quality as well. So our programming is, as I mentioned, we do a lot of different things with, we touch all aspects of the food system. We have our regional small farms program in Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap that really works with farmers to support a thriving food and farm sector through classes and workshops, farmer-to-farmer networking events, technical support and access to WSU specialists, and applied research and policy development. So here's the members of our small farms team listed in the lower corner, a sampling of the kinds of workshops that we run every year in our 3 counties. Most of them are geared towards beginning farmers. Other, more established farmers really need really specialized technical assistance that we provide through variety trials that we do with farmers, or we bring in expertise from the larger university system, plant pathologists or agronomists. We have an extensive website, a hub of resources for farms. We also oversee our Eat Local First program in the county. So for all of you out there thinking, oh my gosh, how can I access some of these delicious local farm products? We are part of a statewide collaborative that runs a website called Eat Local First, which has an online farm guide on it. So you can go in, enter our area, the zip code for our area, and it will bring up a listing of farms in our area. You can sort by product, you can sort by farm stand. It's a great way to have a more detailed look at the types of products that are available in our area. And being part of this statewide collaborative, we were one of the founders of this, a partner founder of Eat Local First. The legislature is considering really investing in Eat Local First as a statewide agricultural brand. And as such, we have huge statewide leverage in marketing our area and buying ad time in some major media markets in the I-5 corridor to advertise our area as an ag tourism destination. We advertise on the ferries and at SeaTac through Eat Local First. So it's a great way we're leveraging some pretty powerful statewide resources to highlight our ag community. Next is our the work we do around food access and food security through our community health and food access program. So a couple of sobering statistics that drive our work in food security in the area. Clallam has the 4th highest rate of child food insecurity in Washington state. The good news is we're down over the last couple of years from being the 2nd highest, but it's still pretty bad that we're that we have the 4th highest rate of childhood food insecurity in Washington state. 1 in 7 residents in Clallam County is living in poverty. 1 in 2 students in our school district is eligible for free and reduced lunch. And almost 1 in 6 low-income preschool children in Clallam County are obese.
So isn't the food insecurity though more about, instead of the lack of food, because there's so much food available and it's being thrown away, it's more about the parents that are not thriving and not able to provide for their kids?
Well, yes. I mean, it's all woven together. Another aspect of it, yes, if the parents aren't thriving, it's doubtful that the kids are going to be thriving. And it also comes down to access. These are the census tracts in which at least 1/3 of the population live 1 mile or 10 miles, 1 mile in an urban environment or 10 miles in a rural environment from a grocery store. And so that means if you're in a situation where your car is broken down and you don't have the money to fix it at the time, and you live in a rural area and you're 10 miles from the nearest grocery store, it's going to be problematic. Not to mention the types of food that become available for you if you're on a limited budget. The sad fact in our country is that fruits and vegetables are expensive. They're oftentimes more expensive than cheap processed foods that are high in calories, but low in nutritional content. And that's why there are statistics that show that, again, almost 1 in 6 low-income preschool children in Clallam County is obese. These very same preschool children most likely are food insecure. Rebecca, I see you have your hand up.
Great.
Yeah, so thanks so much. Andra, I believe, is on the call. Colleen, when you said that there's too much food, we are hearing very different things than that from the food bank, that they are literally running out of food right now. So I didn't know if Andres wanted to jump in or not, but I think that certainly waste is a problem, but I think that's a misconception that, I mean, the food banks are in pretty dire shape right now with their supplies.
Yeah, Andrea, you want to chime in? I know the numbers that you are seeing these days are just incredibly sobering. Oh, she might.
Sorry, yes, and I'm driving, so please excuse the road noise. Yeah, you know, we have seen the food banks across, not just in Sequim, but across Clallam County, have seen a huge increase in need in the first quarter of this year. The Sequim Food Bank, for example, is up 47% in service need from the first quarter of last year. I know Port Angeles and Forks are in similar increased numbers. I don't have their numbers exactly. That on top of the fact that there's less food available that's coming our way through our emergency food partners and other governmental agencies, some of that has to do with the fact that there's been a reduction in the money that's been allocated, and also food is more expensive. What we see in our grocery stores are, we're experiencing that as well. Also, I wanted to just chime in real quick, Clea, if I could.
Yeah.
One of the strategies, coping strategies that families use when their budgets do get tight is that they often, like you said, don't buy the more expensive items. And a lot of times those happen to be the more nutritious items. And so what we do in in the Sequim Food Bank is really focus our purchasing dollars on those foods. So, ensuring that families have access to those items like fresh meats, fresh produce, milk and eggs and such. So knowing that those are the first things that will be cut off of their budget. Also, when people do make strategies in their purchasing decisions, whenever times get tight, they'll sometimes move to a less expensive protein. Well, a cheaper protein used to be tuna and eggs, and that doesn't seem to be that cheap anymore. So that whole possibility, and what you look at as far as food insecurity, we're going to see an increase in that as we move through this process, because there's just not as much food available coming our way, and there's a huge increase in need right now. Thank you.
So my question about that, and regarding what Rebecca was saying, that there's plenty of food, or there's not plenty of food, it's just not getting to the food banks. And so what is the solution? Is it, what is the low hanging fruit, the pathway of least resistance to get more, and I'm sure it's multi-pronged, but more food into the hands of the families and kids that need it? Obviously, food banks are a important pathway, but how do we get more food then to the food banks? And I think long term, it's about the families and having good wages in our community so they can afford it.
Well, it's definitely a multi-pronged solution, as you said, Colleen. Some of it's federal policy, some of it's state policy. I can talk about what we're doing here at Extension as our part, I guess, of not only trying to increase food access and the quality of food that's available to people, but also economic development. And I can talk about that aspect of our programming. But yeah, it's multi-pronged and really complex, much of it federal policy. And I'm sure Andrea could talk in length and detail about that. But what we're doing, well, first, we know that food insecurity is a public health issue, significantly associated with the top 9 chronic diseases that are so prevalent in our country. Here's what we're doing to try and help try and come up with solutions. We work on establishing little free pantries, and I will say we work in really close partnership with our food banks. They are essential partners in the work that Extension does, and I want to put a special call out to Andrea and just the incredibly visionary, dynamic leader that she has been in this space, and really leading the charge when it comes to innovations in food banking. So thank you, Andrea, for all your incredible work in this community. In Extension programming, what we do is we've established, you've all seen little free libraries around where books are available for pickup. We have established a network of little free pantries around the county. Pre-COVID, we had, I think, 1 or 2 in sites around the county, and now we have 24 of them scattered all around the county, all the way from Squim out to the Hoe, in fact. And this is Benji Ostracon standing by one of these little free pantries. Each pantry has a host that helps ensure that it's in good working order. People come and donate food, and people come and take food. And oftentimes this is a way for people to not have to face some of the stigma around going to another location to get food. But I will say that these little free pantries, to get at what Andrea was saying, are just cleared out all the time. As soon as food is donated there, they're cleared out. But if you're interested in them or in being a host for a site, contact our office and we can get you hooked up. We work on school gardens to educate kids around growing their own vegetables. We're working on really cracking the nut when it comes to getting healthy, nutritious food in our schools that in some cases is locally grown. We work on that through our Farm to School program. We have our Farm to Food Bank program and our Gleaning program, which I'll talk about next. So our Farm to Food Bank program, this is what I was talking about in terms of, it's sort of a win-win situation where we are doing economic development for small farms by having really working with them to contract our small farms to grow directly for the food banks. This year we had over $70,000 in contracts that we had with farms in both Clallam and Jefferson, farms that are growing food directly for our food banks at competitive wholesale prices. This is, like I said, a win-win, because for our really small farms that may not have wholesaling experience, it's one thing to be growing and doing direct marketing to customers at a farmer's market. It's another thing to enter into a contract that binds you to producing high quality produce week after week. This is a really low risk way for some newer farms to dabble in what it means to grow for a contract and what it means to grow for a wholesale. And we've had feedback from farms that this program really helps them. It's part of their process of scaling up. So this comes from a variety of grant funding that we have to fund this program, but we also rely on community donations through our Olympic Peninsula Farm to Food Bank Fund. People care about our farms. People care about the people who are in need in our community, and our community is incredibly generous in donating to this program.
So Clea, is that an ongoing program? Is it 70,000 annually? And
yeah,
what
that's what it was this year. That's what it was this year, and it depends on the grant funds that we get in next year and the community donations that we get in next year, what the amount will be, but that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that's a great circular program.
It really is. It's just
That has numerous wins. Yep.
numerous wins. And, when we support local farms, we see the multiplier effect of supporting local businesses, something like for every dollar spent, there's a much greater portion of it comes back to community and circulates within the community than if you go and buy from larger businesses, from Cisco, for instance. So supporting our local farms is supporting our local economy. Not to mention supporting people in need to get high quality, nutritious food at the food banks. Next is our Gleaning program. We are in this rural area. We have a lot of remnant orchards or people with really large gardens that get maybe over ambitious in planting, and then suddenly in the summer they have more zucchini than they know what to do with, and they call us up and they say, oh my gosh, I have 10 fruit trees here and I'm never going to be able to eat all these cherries and plums. I would love to get this to the food bank, but maybe I don't have the capacity to come and, or to pick all this fruit in a timely way. So we have over 350 volunteers on our gleaning list who we send out notifications to where these gleaning sites are, and groups of volunteers will go out and glean the gardens and orchards. And our message is take what you need, spread it around to your neighbors, and bring some to the food bank if you can. So in a given year, it ranges from around 20,000 to 40,000 pounds of produce that is gleaned through our program. Last year was such a lousy fruit year, so it was much less, but in an abundant fruit year, upwards of 40,000 pounds of produce. 20 different organizations receive this gleaned food, including our food banks and food pantries. 26 different types of crops, anything from apples to blueberries to squash, potatoes, you name it. And as such, sometimes utilizing all that fresh produce that's pouring into these food access sites around harvest time, it's kind of feast or famine. So we've worked in close partnership with the Port Angeles Food Bank at their new location, which is astounding. If you haven't had a chance to see it, it's incredible. To create a state-of-the-art processing kitchen where we can take during times of high influx of fresh produce, turn this fresh produce into more shelf-stable items like applesauce or chopped up, frozen, minimally processed vegetables. And we're in the process of hiring a kitchen manager who will be creating fresh to-go deli items for our food bank clients. So really, we're on I would say, in this county, again, through Andra's leadership, through Emily's leadership, really on the leading edge of food bank innovations. So stay tuned. That's coming this spring. Lastly, I'll just do really quickly our waste reduction program. We work hard in a variety of ways in the schools, through education and outreach to reduce the amount of food waste that's happening in our community. And there's a lot of it. About 20% of our municipal waste stream is food. Much of it still probably edible before it gets into that waste stream. And when this food gets into the garbage stream, it decomposes as methane, which is a way more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So food waste is a real issue, especially in terms of when we talked about all the people in need in our community, as a climate change producing gas. So we work closely with our solid waste department, with Megan Euchre at the City of Sequim to address ways in which to reduce food waste in our community. So, whew, sorry, I powered through a lot. Oh, we do that through waste prevention activities at the schools, food waste audits, educating restaurants, and now ramping up a new hot food recovery program to utilize at the new kitchen I mentioned at the food bank. So I think that's the last slide. Yep, there it is. Our mission, improving the quality of life for citizens across Clallam County. That gives you a sampling of our programming, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
I put that one in the chat. I had no idea that food waste did that much release of methane gases. Does composting help or?
Yes, composting absolutely helps. Keeping food out of the municipal waste stream and composting it in your own backyard is an excellent solution.
Composting still releases emissions, but there is, and it's pretty exciting in my mind, there is a new technology called Humisoil that is not a composting process where the food breaks down. It's a fermentation process where it's covered. So you bring all the food waste, the sewage waste, and you also need organic materials, but we have lots of that and slash piles and everything across the across our county. And that it's a technology that's owned by an Australian company. They presented to the United Nations on a couple different occasions. And the entity that owns the technology rights in the United States is Sustainable Green Team. And they have rights to produce it in Florida and in Washington State. And the Washington State locations are in Forks and Beaver. And so they are in the process. They've leased 40 acres with the Forks Industrial Park, and they purchased property in Beaver. So they are going to be, and they own the catalyst that is used for this process, where over a 6-month period, the food waste can be gathered and it's covered. And so again, there are no methane emissions, no carbon emissions, and the process actually creates water. I'll say that again, it actually creates water, not from the sky, not from irrigation, but from the microbial process that occurs in the soil. So it's something I think you're going to hear a lot more about. It's been going in China and Jordan and Dubai and Australia. And so it's just coming to the United States. And so it was a big success that we got it. Their location for Washington State is here. But if you guys are interested in it, I actually want to have on a coffee chat them come talk about it. There's a lot of information on YouTube about it called Humisoil. But anyway, so we've got some other questions I see in the chat.
Sharon Ann is asking, what programs are there to help farmers with the business of farming, especially new farmers? Yeah, Sharon Ann, there's lots of resources out there, both through our office. We run a 12-week course called Cultivating Success that really takes new farmers through the nuts and bolts of farm planning, both from a production standpoint as well as a business standpoint. And we run that 2 classes, usually annually. There's also, our website would be a great place to start. WSU Regional Small Farms Program. If you Google that, it'll come up. Also, I would recommend Mark Bowman at the North Olympic Development Council. If you're an established farmer looking to grow your business in new ways, Mark is a great resource for helping you do some enterprise budgeting and looking at bringing on new aspects of your business. If you're a brand new farmer, another resource would be CIE, the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship. And they can help you sort of look at an idea that you might have and incubate it. But if it's about like, how do I start farming as a business, contact our office. I put my email in the chat and we can hook you up with a lot of resources for that.
All right. And you've met Sharon Ann from the SBDC so she covers Clallam and Jefferson counties. And so I noted you need to update your map to show that there's an SBDC center in Port Angeles.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's so exciting to be here. I have one client who's a farmer, but I'm looking for more.
Great, Sharon Ann. We need to connect.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll reach out.
All right. Does anyone have any additional questions? I can go through the chat and make sure we didn't miss anything.
Could you
all right.
talk about the shift to Mediterranean diet?
Mike, I am not a nutrition expert at all. That would be probably Daniel Carson in our office, who could talk a lot more about the nutritional guidelines for people and what's switching to a Mediterranean diet would look like. If I tried, I would probably be spewing misinformation.
Thanks, Clea.
Matthew, we are located currently in the historic courthouse at the county government offices, but we're moving really shortly, in a matter of weeks, actually. So find us there in the next couple of weeks, or else we'll be out by the fairgrounds in the old juvenile detention facility. We've been in that corner office there at the courthouse for probably 50 years. I haven't, but our extension office has. And we've simply outgrown it. There's 14 of us now, and we need some more spaces. And I'm really excited about our move because we'll have both an indoor classroom and an outdoor classroom to hold some of our ongoing weekly classes that we have. So yeah, there'll be information coming out about our new address.
Thank you.
Great. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Well, that was an exceptional presentation, Clea. Thanks for providing. Yep, and Megan has mentioned that they have a really good website as well. So thanks so much for being willing to present the work, and then also for everything you and your team does.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Colleen. I enjoyed being here.
Great. All right. Well, you can find this recording on our website later on today. Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.